What's going on, guys? I'm Jody. This is Inspire Woodcraft. Today we're making a quick little jig build. Now this is going to be a build for the bandsaw, so if you don't have a bandsaw, this jig might not help you. But it might give you an idea for a jig you can make for another tool you own. Now this jig is used for cutting corks. I recently had a build where I had a corner shelf style dry bar that we made, and I decorated the outside moldings with cork. And to do so, I needed to split these in halves. I'm going to use a piece of 1/2 inch plywood. Now what's great about this is we can use a lot of scraps that we probably have laying around the shop anyways. Now you'll notice that I have this plywood cut at a 45-degree bevel, and those bevels match as opposed to one going this direction and one going this direction, and that's important. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to cut these to length on the bandsaw, and I'm going to need 2 pieces. We're going to double those up. I'll show you in just a second. First, let's cut them over on the bandsaw. To measure them, I'm actually going to take one of the longest corks that I have in my collection. I'm actually just going to measure down to see the length that I need to cut these at, and I'm actually going to add 1/8 to 1/4 inch to that so that I have plenty of room to get the cork in and out after I cut it. I'll show you what I mean. So this was the longest cork in the collection that I have left, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it 1/8 or so on this side extra and 1/8 or so on this side extra. This isn't rocket science. You don't have to be exact with anything, but I'm going to cut this and then I'm going to cut it again, and we're going to put those together. I'll show you. Now, any regular viewer of this channel knows that I'm a big fan of using CA glue or super glue and accelerant. As you guys know, I usually get my stuff from STARBOND. I don't know if that shows up on camera, but you guys have seen it all before. So I'm actually going to glue these together like this. I'm going to create a V shape. Now I'm using a thick CA glue because I find that medium and thin soaks into the plies a little too much. And I'm going to use a little more than I would normally use on something because I really want a nice tight bond all the way around, because we're going to split this in half later on down the road. And put a little spray on that side, and that's going to make this kick a little bit quicker. Now I'm just going to put it together, make sure that it's exactly where I want it. Once you have this accelerator on there, it kicks pretty quick. And that's going to have to be good because it's already set. Now, of course, I could pry this apart if I wanted to, but that would defeat the entire purpose. Now, because I misaligned this just a tad, I'm actually going to take this over to the belt sander. I'm going to sand this flush real quick, and then I'm going to grab a piece of plywood for the back and start cutting my pieces for this side as well. Now we're going to take this piece of 1/4 inch that I have here. I'm going to line it up right to the outside of here. I'm going to score a line right here. And I'm just going to follow that line out. This is just going to be a reference line. And then I'm going to come back with our thick CA glue again. And I'm just going to kind of goop that up a little bit. Again, way more than you would normally need. But I really want this thing to stick all the way around. A little bit of accelerant right there. And then I'm just going to match this up with the side of this piece. I'm going to hold it there for a few seconds. And once I know it's good, I'm going to take it to the bandsaw, and we're going to use this as our reference mark to slice this off. And then we're going to use this as a reference mark to slice this off. You'll see here in just a second. Alright, so now that I have that cut, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it on a piece of 3/4 inch. This is going to be the back, and it's going to act a little bit as a guard so we don't cut all the way through there. It kind of gives us a positive stop. And I'm just going to line it up with one corner and the other corner. And I'm actually going to do this twice. Now I just happen to have this piece of 1/4" ply laying around, so what I'm going to do is actually square this up, and I'm going to put it somewhere in the center, and I'm actually going to pull back just about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to hold my square here as long as this is where I want this box. I'm going to draw a line. That's going to be a reference line, and then again I'm going to take our CA glue. I'm going to put some just on the edge here, and then I'm going to put some on this back edge here. And using that reference point, I can set it in place. You can see how fast that stuff works. It's already stuck. Now we're going to take it back to the bandsaw, and I'm actually going to put the slice in it right here. And now I'm just going to go ahead and cut my V in here, and I'm just using a flush cut saw to do this. This could be done while you were already cutting this at the bandsaw. I honestly just forgot. But since we already have our relief cut, it actually works pretty well that way. And then you can come back and hit it with a little bit of sandpaper, clean that up. And of course the sanding is completely optional. As you can see, I've kind of rounded this over and cleaned some of this up. I personally like my jigs, if I'm going to keep them for a while, to be sort of clean looking and not too haphazard. So now I'm going to use a medium CA glue, and I'm just going to run a bead towards the end. And when I hit it with the accelerator, it's going to dry instantly. And I can do that all the way around these edges if I'm worried about something separating somehow down the road, which I'm not, but it does allow for a little bit of extra security. And it really just kind of acts like a weld. It works really good on small projects like this. You can also use the thick CA glue to adhere a cork handle if you would like. And then again, we can use the medium to just put a bead around it. And now we can be sure that this handle is not going to come off. So now we have our whole system. Let's take it back and see how it does for cutting corks. So as you can see, it actually works really well. By dropping our cork in here, the 45-degree angle self-centers that cork. The blade, because it's cutting in a downward motion, is going to keep the cork embedded into that 45-degree channel that we made. And by cutting this notch, we're able to cut and then just pull it back out. When I originally made this, I didn't put that notch in there, and it was a pain to get the corks coming back out of there. Couple things to note. If you push the sled too far in and you allow the blade to go all the way through the cut, what's going to happen is the two halves are going to fall back on top of each other. And when you go to pull the sled back out, the two pieces are going to bind up on that blade. So it's really important to know that you just barely push it until the blade clears that back cut, and then slowly pull back out. And you'll get the hang of it, and pretty soon you'll be cutting corks, no big deal. If it does bind up, you can just push it all the way through and grab it from the other side. Anyways, rambling as always. That's how I cut corks in half. You may not have a desire to cut corks ever in your lifetime, but hopefully this gives you an idea on something that you may have needed to split in half before, or just an idea for a jig in general, or hopefully you cut corks for a living and this will help you. Either way, that was it for this jig. Thanks so much for watching this video as always, and we'll see you guys in the next video.